welcome you to Call My Bluff. We're peering over the bow tie that looks like the dawn coming up over West Croydon. We have Frank Muir.
My first guest, we welcome back to the programme an actress who arrives hot from the Royal Exchange Theatre, Manchester, Gabrielle Drake. My next guest is new to the programme, and he's a photographer. It's the Earl of Lichfield, Patrick.
And the only 8-foot leprechaun in captivity, Patrick Campbell.
And my guest comes even hotter from the theatre, from 10 Times Table, Julia McKenzie. And my other guest is the most distinguished actor who's been Macbething like mad, Ian McKellen. That's the hard part.
Now, let's get a word now, because that's how the game begins, if I remember it well. Muir is the first word, and as you may recall, Frank Muir and his team are going to define that first word, in this case, Muir, 3 different ways. 2 of them are false, 1 is true. That's the one that Patrick and co try and pick out. So, Frank, Muir.
You are a New Zealand Maori. See, you've got, yes, you, imagine, just imagination. Long time ago, because a very, very ancient, distinguished race. And you walking along the track, and how are you to know where your territory ends and the next chap, your neighbour's, begins, you see? So what you do, somebody must have said countless years ago, stick a mummy on it. Stick a mummy there, and we'll know. So they made a little pyramid out of animal bones or branches of tree. An old boot, they had an old boot there, but anything which was a demarcation between one Maori territory and its neighbour. Mama.
Oh, no, it wasn't.
She done told me.
1 or 2 old boots here. No names, no pack drill. Patrick Lichfield, your turn.
A mom is actually Japanese, and if you wanted to weigh something very precious in Japan, you would weigh it by the mom. Now, a mom is equivalent to 3 3/4 grams in English, and I think you'd be astounded to know that in 1868, the average daily weight of silver mined in Japan was 50,000 moms. How's that?
That fits, it fits. Gabrielle Drake.
Mom is a word from Leicestershire, and believe it or not, a mom is no more, no less than a simple breadcrumb. It's the old local word for a breadcrumb. And indeed, if you meet old ladies in Leicestershire today, they will talk about feeding the mommerings, the bread crusts, to the birds.
Good Lord.
It's nice. Never know. So, it's a Maori boundary, it's a Japanese measure, and it's breadcrumbs in, I think you said Leicestershire, Gabrielle.
That's right, yes.
So, Patrick, have a choice.
We all know perfectly well that once West Norfolk is mentioned, or Persia, or Turkey, it must be a bluff, or true. This includes Leicestershire. Well, back to work then.
It was nice
Pull
thinking
yourself
there, though. Very
together.
good.
Seeing the Japanese, there's no room for mommy in Japanese language. I'm nearly sure. Don't go away. All this drivel about Maoris marking out their boundaries. They know by instinct where their boundaries are. So I got rid of all of them, haven't I? That's a droid.
Yes.
No, I haven't done a crumb. It's a crumb.
You're going to have that,
Yeah.
are you? Leicestershire, I think you said, Gabrielle. True or bluff? The crumb. No. Neither in Leicestershire nor anywhere else, I suspect. Who gave the true definition? Here it comes. all pretending.
not.
They're acting like mad. Yes. Japanese measure. Japanese measure. How could you have thought otherwise? Let's have another word. Groomer is the next one, and Patrick will define it.
A groomer is a railway executive who's in charge of American railway marshalling yard. A pretty responsible task, this, because he's got to be there with millions of trucks coming in and going out, but to get them into the siding and not into the railway station itself. Even through the buffet. The groomer
What are you talking about?
has got... the groomer's got to direct the trucks into the right sidings. He's a railway marshalling yard senior executive.
Now, it was bungful of information was that. Now, Ian McKellen tells you.
Groomer, think of haddock, and then think of a very large king-size haddock, anything weighing over 18 pounds, and you'll have the definition of this Scottish word, groomer. In 1902, the trawler Princess Augusta left Oban and landed a groomer of 33 pounds 5 ounces.
Wait, so Walter Scott.
That is as true as the fact that the word groomer is a large haddock.
Julia Mackenzie's turn now.
Well, now, a groomer was a Victorian invention. It actually brought mechanisation into the stable yard. It was a device with rotating brushes that were driven by electricity, which, of course, at that time was a marvel. And it, in fact, helped the groomer to groom. Like that.
So it was a mechanical grooming implement. It was a very big haddock, and it was an American railwayman. Frank, your choice.
I don't want a choice.
Got to have it.
I think, you know, I have close connections to Scotland.
You're going to get it then?
Yes.
Get the answer.
Well, I hope so eventually, because I think a large haddock in Scotland is called a large haddock. I didn't understand the gentleman and the American doing this to pass railway trucks into the buffet.
No gestures were made.
Well, there might be any moment. I think it's this ridiculous thing of the whirring brushes being applied to horses' flanks.
The mechanical groom, yes,
Well,
or
that's
grooming article or thing. That was Julia, your suggestion. True or bluff? Oh, yes. Very good. Apparently they had these electric things for rubbing the horses down with once upon a time. Whisty is our next word. Patrick Lichfield's turn.
If you came from Hampshire or Dorset, and I think, Patrick, that immediately makes you worry, and you were weak in substance and character, which of course you're not, but generally an insipid person, you could well be described as whisty. It's a Hampshire word for someone who is not particularly strong of character and so on. You can imagine John Arlott saying it about some cricketers, can't you? Yes. And if I come to think of something really whisty, I had a cup of British Railways tea today on the way here, which I would have said was a whisty cup of tea, if you understand what I mean.
Right enough. Gabrielle.
Well, if you had to invent a name for someone who was mad about cricket, say John Arlott, you could call him Crickety. Or about snooker, you could say snookery, or ping-pong, ping-pongy. However, for someone who is besotted about whist, there is already a word, and that is whisty.
Is there? Well, now, Frank.
In Ireland, when they want to propel certain areas, very light rowing boats along, they use a whisty, two whisties actually, and otherwise they go around in circles. It's an Irish oar with a very thin blade. Now, the width of a whisty is only about 3 inches. And I don't know whether it's the theory of this narrow blade is to make it easier to work, or whether it makes the boat more manoeuvrable. But it's a narrow Irish
Or.
Right. So it's this oar, narrow one, Irish, insipid, general adjective, and it's a sort of whist nut, one mad about whist. Ian McKellen.
So, if one knew an insipid person who was mad about whist and had an Irish oar, it would be a whisty, whisty's whisty.
That's well said, that's well said.
Well, now, didn't Peter Cook have a character called Mr. Whisty?
Very nearly, Mr. Whisty.
What was he called?
E-J-E-L Whisty.
Whisty.
That's right.
Well-
Where does that get us quite?
Well, he was an insipid person, wasn't he?
True, true.
And therefore that inclines me to think that Patrick might be telling the truth. I would think a thin Irish oar would be called a whispy oar. I think you're trying to mislead us in that way.
Of course, yes.
And anyone mad about whisty would be just called, wouldn't they, mad about whisty? I think a whisty is an insipid person from Hampshire.
Dorset or thereabouts, Hampshire, you did mention. That's Patrick Lichfield now, true or bluff? No? Not that, nothing to do with it. Who gave the true definition of whisty? Can you imagine who it'll be?
Couldn't be you.
You see. How cheeky can you get? A whisty person is one mad about whist. Oh dear. Well, well. 3-0. Something will have to be done. Canasta. Ian McKellen.
The object of this game isn't to get no points, is it?
Unless you're going
My
misère.
object, yeah.
Well, now. No, Robert, not canasta, nasta. Nasta. You remember, opponents, do you, the 18th century couplet, but nasta always, nasta is my song, in studious gloom or mid the assembly's throng.
Not too well, no.
Well, take my word for it that the 18th century bard there is singing in praise of a highly flavoured brand of 18th century tobacco. But nasta always, nasta is my song in studious gloom or mid the assembly's throng.
Good stuff, good stuff. Julia, what about you?
Oh, and I like to pronounce it canasta. It's a very famous medieval coloured glass, canasta glass or canasta glass, whichever part of the country you come from. You'll probably recognise it. It's that very beautiful blue and red hues, nearly transparent, and it's used a lot in stained glass windows.
Medicine bottle.
Yes?
Yes, of course, I meant to mention that it's named, of course, after the place of manufacture, which is a suburb in Leipzig. Canasta.
Knaresborough.
Okay, now Patrick tells you.
In days of yore, no gentleman would be seen wearing a nasta, because it was a pretty silly, kind of pudding bowl-shaped helmet. And the purpose of the helmet was to protect the heads of serfs and other servants.
They didn't bother in those days.
Who is doing this, you or me? So therefore, I know what the score is. It's always 3-0. But that's what an astra is, a medieval pudding-basined helmet worn by serfs.
Okay, dim sort of a helmet, tobacco and coloured glass. Patrick Lichfield.
Well, I don't think that Patrick could have really got it right because it couldn't possibly have been called Nasta, and that's how you pronounced it.
Why?
Well, it's too close to nasty.
Oh.
Isn't it, really? I don't know. And I think that your glass is a bit smoky. I just have a feeling that, at least we all do, I think, that it's...
Yes, yes.
So,
In accord.
despite the fact that I never heard of what you were talking about to start with, and you pulled a lot of wool over our eyes there, I think we still might go for the tobacco.
The tobacco, no, it was Julia, I think.
No.
Wasn't it? Got that slightly wrong then.
Ian.
Oh, it was Ian, yes. I and J, I'm confused.
We haven't put...
You're not the only one.
It does bring the monotony, though, Frank.
Always trust me.
There you are. Yep, I wrote down JM and IM and I confused them, but it was Ian McKellen, quite right. It's a kind of tobacco. And this is a kind of a disaster. 4-0, we have to do something again. Well, I don't know about me, but you will. Gabrielle, your turn.
A slavin is a short, thick, stubby knife with a sort of turned-up tip, rather like a retroussé nose. And if you're partial to seafood and you happen to be travelling along the northeastern coast of North America, you'll probably have seen a slavin because it is used in the seafood restaurants to great effect to open clams.
It's called a knife.
So, right. And after you comes Frank Muir.
Slavin is the East End of Londonese for sort of rubbish or old bits, you know, little bits of nasties. Believed to be a corrupted form of a Jewish word, slalavin, which is the bits they chucked away from kosher meat, the bits of non-kosher food. Slavin, it's horrible little bits.
Yeah, well, Patrick Lichfield's go.
If you were a pilgrim and you wanted to go out of doors, you would take a stout staff and your slavin, and that's all you really needed because they were a bit sparse in those days. And your slavin, therefore, was a form of garment worn by pilgrims, and probably some other people, but worn by pilgrims certainly. When on their horse, it would reach down to their ankles, and if there was a chill wind blowing, the slavin would keep the wind off the pilgrim.
Yes. So, well, it's quite reasonable if it's true. It's a pilgrim's cape. It's sort of a knife, and it's sort of rubbish. Julia McKenzie, to choose.
I think it is sort of rubbish, isn't it? At least we're sort of rubbish. Yeah, can we have a little confab? for
Oh,
it?
yes, certainly.
So, I mean,
Heart
I'm
and soul of the
up
game.
against it here.
You're going to...
Well, I think, yeah.
It's a disease of horses.
I think, like Mr. Packer, we should be able to put microphones on the discussions for the edification.
Often wonder what they're saying myself, you know, when I sit here.
Well, I've absolutely had no help at all from
At their own as
this
usual.
side, yes. Gabrielle, you said it was a clam knife. I think that word is spavin.
No, it isn't.
Spevins.
You could have told me earlier. I've said it now. I'm committed. Frank,
Yes, Julia, yes.
non-kosher rubbish. Can I leave that and come back to that one in a minute? Patrick, this long cloak hanging down. Wouldn't you catch your feet in it, wouldn't you? Wouldn't it get in the way?
I never worn one.
No?
I'm not a pilgrim.
Not if you jumped to
I
Canterbury.
feel like one. It's going to be eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I just have no
Usually
idea.
is, my dear.
Yes,
Usually
I
is,
know.
yes.
The cloak?
I don't know.
Oh, don't matter. I'm on the spot. I'm going to say
What
pilgrim's cloak.
Pilgrim's cloak. Now, did she choose well? It was Patrick Lichfield who said it. True or bluff? So she was really working it out all the time. I thought she was just pretending. Put off the evil day of choice. Well done, broken the duck anyway.
That's all
Cordex.
we want in the way of a point.
Right,
Yes.
Julia, your turn again.
My turn, is it? The cordex. Oh, yes. Well, this is a sort of ancient Greek can-can. It was rather lewd and involved quite a lot of arm throwing and leg throwing I would get up and do it for you, but there's not a lot of room here at the moment, really. And take my word for it, it's a bit saucy, and I think that, you know, you and I certainly, if not Frank, would avert one's eyes if it was going on in this room at the moment. It's, the Cordax is an ancient Greek can-can.
Okay, well, let's try Patrick now.
The Cordax is a thick muscle at the back of the neck, or the nape of the neck. And the Cordax being there, it enables us to nod. If we didn't have a Cordax, we could nod once and we could stop. That's what it is.
Right, Ian McKellen, his go.
A cordax is a metal holder for candles, used by the ancient Romans, not for Roman candles of the firework variety, but of candles for everyday illumination. And it had a little handle by which it was portable, but if you wanted it to illuminate public ways, like indoors, like corridors, you would have looped this handle to a further fitment on the side of the wall, so that it could be a semi-permanent torchlight affair, a candle holder.
What a good idea.
Yes, yes, it's the neck muscle that allows actors in films to do that nodding at the end. It's a candle holder, and it's a Greek dance. Gabrielle, your choice.
Does she know about bodies?
But do I know about bodies, did you say?
So my friend...
I don't.
It's a bit worrying, isn't it? I sort of go on instinct.
It takes forever.
No, I'm not sure at all.
Anytime you're ready, we are.
Possible. Hang on.
Hang on.
Hang about.
You're just playing for time, aren't you?
Look at the score.
I know the score.
Doesn't matter.
Oh dear, I wish we could see this lewd can-can. I'd love to see you doing it, Julia. I'm
Not
sure
quite
it
enough.
would be very exciting. And the nodding muscle in the back of the neck, without which all we'd get would be the bald patch on top of the head. Or the metal candle holder. This is extremely difficult. It could be any one of the three. That's the
good.
trouble.
That's true.
And it
the
must
truest
be
word
one
I've
of the
heard.
three, mustn't
Yes.
it? Yes.
You're very nearly there now.
It's the muscle at the back of the neck.
Muscle at the back of Patrick's neck. It was Patrick who did it. Said it, did it, performed it, true or bluff? No. We must see who gave the true definition. Here it is.
I told you should always trust me.
True definition, if you please. You see, it's the Greek dance. It's the Greek dance that Julia quite properly refused to perform. Bentall is the next one. Score standing at 4-2. Frank, your turn.
Greek word. I'm reminded about the young man who was unwise enough to say to the great Dr. Johnson, I'm afraid I've lost all my Greek. And Johnson said to him, about the same time as I lost all my estates in Yorkshire. How many of you have got Greek? Because this is a Greek word, you know, Bentall, from bentos. You know bentos? Right. You surely know. It means the depths of the sea. I thought everybody, even the young man, knew that. So a bentall, from the Greek bentos, depths of the sea, is an adjective referring to depth of the sea. And it means a depth of sea over 1,000 fathoms. And quite a bit of the sea is over 1,000 fathoms, if you go deep enough.
So now,
Do you happen to know how much a fathom is?
4 fathom 5, my father lies.
6 feet.
So we can't trust him.
Don't tell him, he doesn't know.
No, I
7
just
feet.
thought.
7 feet.
I think
sir.
I'm not giving anything away saying it's 6 feet. I may have got that wrong.
Oh, is it 6 feet?
Listen, I do think you're playing for time, Frank. Whose turn next? Patrick. Yes, Patrick Lichfield.
Well, Patrick, you went like this because this is about Dorset. The last one was... somewhere else rural English. And probably Arthur Negus would be better at describing this than I, because it was in a Benthall, the H is silent, is in fact something used by house builders in the Cotswolds. It's a copper lid which is put into houses, or was, when there were open smoky chimneys, and it stopped the smoke from actually coming out into the room. It was a sort of guide, and it was named after a gentleman called Benthall, who popped one into his own house and thus gave his name to the word. Or his word, his name, yes, exactly.
Right, and now whose turn is it? Yes, Gabrielle.
A Benthal is a priest of the German Lutheran Church, but he's a priest with a difference. And if you own an old haunted house in Germany, or if you owned one long ago, you might have had need of a Benthal because his special qualifications led him to be able to exorcise ghosts and evil spirits.
Really, it wasn't.
Yep, so it's a very deep sort of ocean depths over a certain depth. Priest of some sort, German priest, copper sort of hood, canopy lid, kept the smoke going up the chimney. Patrick, your choice.
Just leave all this to me, kids. Have no fear. Better not. The only man who was ever born that knew how to build a chimney that would not smoke was called Baron Romford. Not Professor Benthall. If you know what a fathom is, what are you on about? Lutheran, it doesn't. I believe this word to mean excessive depth of ocean.
Excessive depth of ocean is what Frank said it was. Has Patrick chosen well? True or bluff, Frank?
We've got 2 marks. I'm not bothered.
We'll have to have time for another.
We've got 3 now.
Yeah. That's what it is. That's what it is. My goodness me, time's running out, you know. They were treading water, Frank's team were. Now, we have to do this very quickly. Britska, Patrick.
A brisker is was a 4-wheeled carriage.
That'll do. I'll stop you there in your own interests. Ian, your turn.
Britska is the pennant at the top end of a lance carried by a Hungarian horseman.
Lovely. Julia.
Britska is a boar bred for the table, the feminine of Britski, Polish.
Lovely. How succinct. It's a female pig. It's a carriage of a certain sort, and it's a pennant, also a certain sort. Frank, much depends upon your choice.
We're split. I'm very much in favour of having 4 marks each.
Yeah.
So we're going to choose the carriage.
Oh, you are. Now, who gave the carriage? Yes, the carriage was, I think it was Patrick. I stopped him in mid-flow. True or bluff?
If I'd been allowed to go a little bit longer, I might have bluffed you.
There you are. It is a carriage, and he didn't say very much. He could say it more now. We've got a few seconds in hand, but let's try and imagine what sort of a carriage it was. Let's not bother about really how it was. But 3-5, oh yes, quite decisively, Frank Muir's team has won. We shall be back next time with more plaster gnomes from the Oxford English Dictionary. Until then, goodbye from Patrick Lichfield, Ian McKellen, Gabrielle Drake, Julia McKenzie, Frank Muir, Patrick Campbell, and goodbye. Yes, it's Call My Bluff, and in the sheepskin noseband, Patrick Campbell.
After our brilliant loss last week, I've asked my brilliant losers back again. Lovely dancer, singer, actress Julia McKenzie. And super loser and Shakespearean actor, Ian McKellen.
And in Trap 2, Frank Muir.
I have back again here from the Royal Exchange Theatre, Manchester, actress Gabrielle Drake. And my other is a photographer back from absolutely everywhere, Patrick Lichfield.
Inexhaustible supply of words. We call for but one more. Yes, there it is, good as gold. Muskegee. Patrick and his team will define muskegee 3 different ways. 2 of the definitions are no good. 1 of them's all right, and that's what the other people try and pick out. So off you go with muskegee, Patrick.
Muskegee is rather gone out of fashion because it comes from the Aran Islands in Galway Bay. And it used to be a kind of blend of cockles and mussels, alive, old, or that, but deady-o dead. And in order to make dull fish like pollock and whiting edible, they used to throw this in the pot. But seeing that the whole of the west of Ireland now is invaded by Japanese, German, and Scandinavian businessmen, they are turning muskegee into soup de poisson because of all sophisticated posh people. However, in the good old days, it was just a fish sauce in the Aran Islands.
Oh,
Right enough.
thank goodness.
Sounds okay. Unlike most of the sauces on this programme, that one sounds really rather edible. Ian McKellen, his turn.
Muskegee is a very nasty-sounding adjective from describing a very nasty thing, the muskeg, M-U-S-K-E-G, which is a Canadian marshland or bog. And therefore muskegee means to have the qualities of that kind of Canadian marshland or bog.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And now, Julia McKenzie.
Well, a muskegee is a general dog's body, I suppose you would call, of a Persian household. He's a sort of upstairs, downstairs tweenie. He would do anything from laundry to watering, grooming the horses, lighting a torch in front of his master down dark alleyways. That sort of thing. That is a muskegee.
Oh, I am pleased. A Persian odd job man at last. We haven't had a Persian this or that for some time, and I miss them. I tell you honestly, I miss them. It's a Persian odd job man. It's a fish sauce, and it's marshy. It's the adjective marshy. Frank, your choice.
Well, we're having a little discussion about it, in
As
fact.
ever?
Yes,
As
we
ever.
weren't totally 100% certain. But we are...
Never.
But we had a little talk, and we are less so now. Dog's body in Persian household, cat's body, I could see, but not dog's body. Attributes of a Canadian bog. Were we discussing that word, weren't we? Yes, musky, gives a feeling, doesn't it? Nice, Ian. Well done. Excellent.
Nasty
Muskegee.
sounding.
No, it's not that. Some of us think it's Paddy's fish sauce, tashed apart.
Well, it was. He did say it was fish sauce, now rather more sophisticated and all that with Germans and tourists. True or bluff, Patrick? Were you teasing, or were it the
A
truth?
little touch of apparently Newcastle on Tyne accent, what you done at the end of that betrayed you, because it's a...
No, he told a fib. Who told the truth?
Yes, it was.
It was Ian.
Oh.
Yes, Catchy is what muskeggy means, and it comes from a Canadian word, it seems. 1-0. Then we have septon, and Frank Muir will tell you what that means.
Fascinating word, this, really. It's a fairly recent Australian ease. I don't know how well you know Australian railways, but they used to have separate gauges, and the lines in the state of Victoria didn't join with the lines, for instance, New South Wales. So chaps didn't go much from one to the other all that frequently. And Mr. Sefton, who was an Australian railway man in the state of Victoria, he instituted...
Is that the brother of Mr. Septon?
No, it's the brother-in-law. I think the brother, step-brother, something.
Half-brother, Mr.
So,
I think you said Sefton, but you
may I
didn't mean
my
that.
resignation?
No, I shall not accept it.
Oh, well, he invented the cheap day excursion tickets. Ha ha.
So he did so.
Either of them did.
Yeah. Mr. Septon invented it. Good. Right, Patrick Lichfield.
If you lived in the 19th century, the very early 19th century, and you smelt something that smelt of nitrogen, you wouldn't have called it nitrogen then. You would almost certainly have called it septon. Now, septon was, of course, the word for nitrogen, and was widely believed at that time to be, this is rather morbid, to be the main element in that was discovered in decomposing corpses.
Oh,
Really? Going a bit far, isn't it, your first visit to this programme?
Well, yes, this makes me feel so sick that I can't go on.
Well, you say it's a sort of kind of nitrogen, is what you're saying, right? Gabrielle Drake.
Septon is the correct heraldic name for a starfish. Now, if in fact you happen to sport a starfish on your coat of arms, it means that your ancestor was around in 1191 and took part in the Third Crusade under Richard I.
Mm-hmm. The least they could do, put that on the escutcheon. Quite. It was a cheap ticket invented in Australia by Mr. Septon. It's, I know what you mean, Frank. It's catching. It's an old term for nitrogen, especially that coming from corpses, and it's a starfish. Patrick.
We've got so many people aboard this train. We've got Septon, and Septum.
They're all on the same ticket.
All relations, perhaps.
They're all on the same ticket. Is all.
But what happens when all these kind of half-brothers, Septon, Septum, and Sefton, are on a train going through Australia, it's narrow gauge, suddenly they find a huge gauge in front of them. What are they going to do? Walk home? Don't help me.
What are they going to do?
Nonsense. I don't believe the nitrogen smells at all, does it? You don't know either.
Don't answer supplementary questions without notice.
It certainly isn't a starfish. A starfish would have a more glittering name. I believe, quite frankly, that it's the whiff of nitrogen.
You're choosing it. That was Patrick Lichfield. True or bluff? That nitrogen of which you spoke. Well done, it is. Apparently is an early name for nitrogen. It may persist now, I don't know, but there it is. Next word is ziggurat, and Ian McKellen will define it.
You know those interminable television travelogues about wild beasts in Africa? And you'll have seen on the back of crocodiles little birds so insignificant as to be unnamed by David Attenborough and so on. However, one species of this little bird is a ziggurat. And what it does for the crocodile is to clean its teeth and to nick-pick generally and toothpick. And also it can be a help in other ways for crocodile because it emits a little chattering sound whenever danger is close by. Ziggurat, ziggurat, ziggurat is the nearest I can get to it.
Good idea.
Right on the button.
Well, someone has to be kind to a crocodile, I suppose. Nice to hear about it. Julia.
Well, also on one of those interminable travelogues, you may well have seen those women in Tibet that wear the large, voluminous shawls. And a ziggurat is, in fact, one of those very warm shawls that save them from the icy winds of the Himalayas. I believe that the warmest and the best of these are made from the combings of the hair on the underbelly of a very, very ferocious and almost untamable species of goat.
They
which makes
cold
them-
goat, too.
Yes, yes. It's quite dangerous to get. So, of course, they're very rare. The the best ones, you know.
Would be, yes.
I suppose that's what really made them so ferocious in the first place. You know, we'll go around scraping off their tongues. Now, Patrick, it's your go.
Well, ziggurat is the kind of word that all semi-literates, I think they know the meaning of, because when they buy the first dictionary, they're thunderstruck to find the first word is A. And they turn to the back of the book to see what the last word is. And they're liable, they think, to find ziggurat. And they read what it means and get it all back to front, because it's just an ancient Babylonian tower into which
Get away.
the Babylonians used to gather for wild kind of, well, rave-ups of religious nature. But just because it's the deeper in the dictionary, don't believe you know it.
So it's a sort of a nice warm shawl taken off the goats in Tibet. It's a bird that picks the nits off crocodiles, and it's a tower, one of the many, I suppose, round about Babylon. So, Patrick Lichfield.
I'm rather surprised that Ian thinks that that Attenborough wouldn't mention something so small as your crocodile's dentist.
Have you heard him mention?
No, but he mentions very, very
there we
small
are.
things, terribly small things, where we all came from. So I just tend to discount that one. And the large ladies in large shawls seems a bit woolly, really. But since I've been insulted by Patrick, who thinks that, well, mentioned the word semi-literate, I think, looking in my direction, I'm going to go for that one, I think.
You mean the one he
Bluff,
said?
the
Yes.
tower.
He said that it was a sort of a tower. Is that true or bluff, Patrick?
You're lucky not to be accused of being a semi-illiterate. But you're dead right, though.
Yeah, ziggurat means that sort of tower. It does. And then we have the word Buta, and Patrick Lichfield, tell you all about that.
If you were a knight in shining armour, and suddenly you heard a clarion call, you would know it to be a Buta, and this would mean that you would leap onto your horse and prepare for battle. Now, the Buta was sounded. It was a very simple clarion call, which made you realise that was the time for you to go to your groom, who had a crane, who winched you up and put you on your horse, as you know, and they were very heavy people then. And when they heard the Buta, that's what they knew they had to do. How about that?
Yes, that was quite
Jokes
charming.
yet.
Yes. Now, Gabrielle, off you go.
A Buta is a sort of supplementary dining table. Well, to be absolutely accurate, it's a side table. And if you were feeling extraordinarily democratic, you would allow your henchmen, your maids, your grooms to sit at the Buta and eat their meal while you ate your meal at the high table.
Yes?
Extraordinarily democratic, is it?
Yes. Where will it all end, I ask myself. Frank, your turn.
A bouter is a maritime device. Julia, you're a sailor, you see, and
Are you?
you're a sailor, and the captain says, "Lower the anchor," and the anchor chain goes down the hawse hole, what it's called, hawse pipe, and then he suddenly says, "Snub,
What a confused ship."
snub the cable, snub the anchor." So what you do is you grab a bit of iron and shove it through one of the links of the chain. It can't go any further down the hole, you see. And that bit of rod that you shove through the chain is called the bouter.
Terribly fascinating.
Yes, it's
Riveting, except it's quite loose, actually.
fairly fascinating. It's a snub you put at that point in the anchor chain. It's a trumpet call used for that purpose, and it's a dining table also given to that sort of person. Ian, your turn.
Well, Julia's the sailor. What do you think about Buta?
Patrick's the sailor too, or at least sometimes he claims to be.
We're all
Some
sailors here.
Yeah.
Any advice on that?
You've got no idea.
No, I don't. Well, now we know that bout means end, doesn't it, in French? And therefore, I think it would be an end table rather than a side table. So unless you're deliberately misleading us, you are misleading us, I think.
Well, let's look at the other ones, do you think?
Yes. Boo, I don't know anything about sailing, so I'm not qualified to say
At
whether
last,
that's right
someone
or
who
not.
doesn't know anything about sailing to find one on this show.
However, I know well enough to know that a booter probably was a medieval hooter.
Yes.
Well, a
So
scooter.
you're choosing that.
Yes, I am.
That was what Patrick Lichfield said to our Bluff. Let's see now. We really must know who gave the true definition. Let's have it.
It's
There it is,
Gabrielle,
there
isn't it? Little
somewhere.
Gabrielle.
Yes, indeed it is. You disobeyed your captain. Goodness me. Yes, 2-all, and a booter does mean a side table of that particular sort. Roerback is the next word. Julia, it's your turn.
Roerback. A roerback is a thick biscuit cake, I think, well, not unlike Scottish shortbread, sweetened with honey and little chocolate chips. And it's named a roerback after the Swiss chef who first invented it. I think his name was Marcel Gustavus Roerback. How about that? And that's why it's called a roerback. I think you will have seen it. If you've ever been to Switzerland, you know, they do sell them in the shops in the glass counters.
It sounds lovely.
It is, it's beautiful.
Well. Now Patrick's go.
A roerback was, because they've got air conditioning there now, a roerback, as I said previously, was of great comfort to Dutchmen in the sticky, humid heat of the Dutch East Indies, because when they went to bed, they put the roerback on, which was not an eiderdown in sticky, humid heat. Oh, no. A kind of bamboo cage. It went over the bodies of the Dutchmen, put the sheet over it. A little bit of wind passing, some air passing. It kept off the mosquitoes in part. It was called a roerback because of the Afrikaans language.
It's a
All right.
marvellous idea, even if it's wrong.
You did. I'm going to rush home and see if I can't build one. That's absolutely right. Ian McKellen's go. Here he does it.
Roerback is an infamous word from the backbiting language of American politics. It is a word to describe a false report or deliberate slander, maliciously designed to put one's opponent off and do him down at an election. And you would hear the innocent politician screaming to the television cameras, "It's a lie, it's a slander, it's a roerback."
Yeah, well, it's this kind of bed frame that you put under the bedclothes and wafting breezes, and it's a kind of biscuit, and it's a sort of rumour, false report, that kind of thing. Gabrielle, your choice.
I don't think so. Yes. Yes, lovely.
Yes?
Yes,
Are we
right behind
are
you,
we
about
as
4
one?
paces behind, but I'm with
dear,
you.
don't. Well, this biscuit cake, it sounds lovely, but I don't really think that Monsieur Marcel Roerback existed.
Gustavus
Marcel. I don't really think he was around to create this. I don't like the spelling for a Swiss man. I don't believe in it, and neither do I believe in this Dutch East Indies bamboo cage for letting the wind go free. I think it's this terrible American slander, a roerback.
You do.
Yes.
That was what
Yes.
Ian McKellen said. Did he tell us the truth? Let's learn. We must see it now.
It's not a roerback, it's
Oh. Yep. That's what it is, unlikely as it would seem. It's kind of ill report, false report. Next word is Buckham, and Gabrielle Drake will tell you about it.
Buckham is a Red Indian word, and it was the word that they used to describe the sort of trinkets that they were given by Europeans who wanted in exchange their feathered headdresses and all their lovely things and their land. And the Europeans gave to them, of course, as you know, copper kettles, little bits and bobs, and the Red Indians called this buckham. Lute, really, but buckham in Red Indian language.
Yes, right, though now it's Frank's turn.
I've no wish to lead you astray or set you off on a false scent, but buckham is a red herring. But it's not a false scent or something which leads you astray.
Or
it's a red herring. It is much prized and eaten, in fact, by the Dutch in Holland, where they eat it with relish and sometimes with tomato sauce.
And the next one is Patrick Lichfield.
If you, in the old days, you journeyed to West Africa, particularly Nigeria or the Cameroons, you would possibly find yourself suffering from buckham. Europeans were prone to this disease, and it was so strong and dangerous that they remained prone for several days afterwards, too, and their livers were the things that suffered most from this particular malady, and in fact it caused a very serious form of it was like jaundice, but non-infectious. But the Africans would refer to it as buckham.
Oh, thank God.
Surprised we didn't get a laugh out of that. Diseases usually bring the house down here. It's a sort of Dutch herring. It's a trinket as far as Red Indians were once concerned, and it's that form of sunstroke. Julia, your choice.
Oh, dear me.
Oh, Lord.
We've had smoke signals from Gabrielle, and red herrings there, and liver disease from Africa there.
You got your sights lined up, haven't you?
Yes, I don't know which one to aim at, though. I really don't. Buckham sounds a little like buckling, which is a fish. But maybe in Dutch, I don't know.
Very good. So it won't be that.
No, probably not. I'll put a cross against that one.
It might be.
What do you think, Patrick?
It's up. You have a little bash yourself.
I have a little bash myself. It's very difficult. I don't know. Sometimes when you're really bluffing, Gabrielle, you look at me very intently, and you did just then. So I'm just going by woman's intuition. I'm going to say it's the liver disease.
The liver disease. That's the one that drew you, was it? Well, that was Patrick Lichfield. True or bluff? No. Fancy making all that up about that kind of disease, but there. Who gave the true definition? We must know it. It's there somewhere.
I have it.
What clever little news.
See, it is the Dutch herring. I think you were on the right tracks, Julia, before you were on the wrong ones. Serut is the next one, and Patrick Campbell is going to tell us about that.
A serut is a species of gadfly that infests the upper reaches of the Nile. It attacks the exposed portions of persons who happen to be in the upper Nile at the time. And many subspecies of serut, but the most malevolent of all is the Gazuma Guma.
To be watched.
G, what it's spelled?
No, doesn't matter. No, forget it.
Right. After that, we have Ian McKellen. Here he comes.
On the west coast of Africa and places like Sierra Leone and Liberia, you will find twining its way around the cocoa plant, the cerut, much in the way that mistletoe grows around plants and trees in England. It too shares with the mistletoe magic qualities, but of a more certain nature than our mistletoe, in that if you chew the berry of the cerut, it will temporarily numb the toothache. Ooh. And as such it is, of course, valued and encouraged indeed.
Hence the root bit.
Cerut.
Yes, right. Julia McKenzie tells it.
Well, a cerut is a sort of bosun, chief petty officer. Don't laugh. Bosun, petty officer, of a ship's crew consisting of Lascar seamen. And you may, if you've ever seen films of the days of the Raj, they used to strut around the decks holding a rattan cane, and that was his sort of badge of office, and he used to belabour his subordinates with this rattan cane. So a cerut is a bosun.
Dear me, dear me. What they say is it's a plant parasite, winds around a tree. It's a bosun, a Lascar bosun, and it's a kind of very nasty gadfly. Frank Muir has his choice.
D'accord? Yes, right. Wicked gadfly on the Nile, who only stings people who are there. I thought it was a very good point you made. They have to go somewhere else.
Illuminating, was it not?
If they're going to sting somebody somewhere else. So it's very logical, that. Very clever. The West African toothache cure, which grows like mistletoe, can you kiss under it? No, probably not. Or this Lascar with the rattan cane, who dashes about the decks in films. Quite clearly, no, not all that clearly, we would tentatively like, we'll come to a second guess, but to begin with, we'd like to see Julia's card.
Julia, because she said that it was the Lascar bosun. Julia, was that a true one?
Sorry.
No. Let's very quickly have the true one. We may squeeze another word in. Yes, indeed. There was a gadfly. We rush on, we have seconds, but for Topinambu, good enough word? Frank, speedily.
Quickie.
Very.
Topinambu is a senior member of the Sultan of Zanzibar's household.
Lovely. He's got Patrick, your turn.
It's a tropical plant where the roots of which can be eaten by people who live in Brazil.
And no one else. Gabrielle.
Lovely thick Moroccan beaded curtain.
Lovely. It's a thick Moroccan curtain. It's a plant edible by people in Brazil, and it's a sultan's butler, that kind of thing, I think. Yes, Patrick, have a choice. You better choose.
It's a sutler's Bolton. A butler's sultan.
You think it's a
Not
sultan?
a sultan's butler, I mean.
It's a Bolton sutler, yes. That was Frank, I think. Was it? Yes, true or bluff?
It's a bluff, isn't it?
It is, We have to hear. We have quickly to find the true one, as quick as you like.
True.
Quick. There it is.
I thought you had the sutler's butler.
Edible plant. We only eat it in Brazil. There you are, 3-5. Pipped on the post again.
I was trying to say it was Patrick. It's custom to butlers. I got tangled up with sutler's butlers.
Butler and Sutler.
And all that.
Yes. Anyway, only tears were the outcome. Frank Muir and his team have won. We'll be back next time with another bunch of no-hopers from the Oxford English Dictionary. Until then, goodbye from Ian McKellen, Patrick Lichfield, Julia McKenzie, Gabrielle Drake, Patrick Campbell, Frank Muir, and goodbye. Hello. Hello again. This is Call My Bluff, featuring the Liberace of the panel game, Frank Muir.
Good evening. My first guest is back for the third time on this game, but she's done a bit of telly in between, I hasten to add. It's Angela Rippon. My second guest is new to the game. He's a writer, he's a poet, he's a novelist, he's a playwright, and here's Alan Garner.
And the man who actually carved the Blarney Stone, Patrick Campbell.
My first guest comes back for the first time. She's never been on the show before. She's a fashion editress. She is called Serena Sinclair. And my other guest is an actor, fortunately, because he comes fresh from playing the part of a young Oscar Wilde, Peter Egan.
Now, we should be able to obtain a word, and a very good one it is. Ketch pillar, or they, I no doubt, will pronounce it umpteen different ways. What happens is that Frank Muir and his team will define ketch pillar 3 different ways. 2 of them are false, 1 is true. That's the one that Patrick and his team trying to pick out. So off you go then, Frank, with this word.
In the prairies of North America, the tobacconist shops are few and far between, particularly on old Indian territories. So the Indians had to knock up their own smoking mixture. Comes time for a pipe of peace or pipe of war. So they used to shove in ketchupilla, which was, you probably want to know how it's made.
Yep.
How?
Yeah.
You say. Well, it's made very simply from bits of dried inner bark of the dogwood tree, a few dried leaves from wild vines, mix it all together, shove it in, oompa, oompa. And the score on the Potomac is equal to the sum of the scores on the other two.
Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear.
I didn't understand that.
Yes, that was very good. It's very good. I've written it down here. I'll tell you after. Alan Garner's turn.
I shall be clear. There are 3 problems with this word. One is that it's Celtic. The other is that it's a vogue word, a nunce word. And the other is that it's real as opposed to unreal. And it is a word used in real tennis. And it was used especially in Scotland at the time of Mary, Queen of Scots, and therefore is not a very commonly used word at all. It is a term from real tennis.
Mm-hmm. Right. Angela Rippon.
A Ketchipilla is a sort of Punjabi tribesman, very nomadic, and I suppose they are the Punjabi equivalent of the Gurkha, because during the Afghanistan war, the British found that they were so incredibly agile in the Afghanistan mountains that they decided to recruit them as scouts.
And they call them Ketchupillas.
Scouts.
Scouts.
Well, this is what they say.
Scouts.
It's that kind of smoking mixture that Indians have manufactured. It's a term in real tennis, and it's that sort of nomad. Patrick.
Oh, perfectly simple.
The man's
I wish
back.
I knew more about real tennis, because there's real tennis and the real tennis.
I differentiated for your sake.
Who's doing this, you or me? Thank you. The Indian pipe of peace made out of old straw and stuff, and oh dear. If only we get a simple word like cat or rat. We believe this without consultation to be Indian tobacco, red Indian tobacco.
You think it's that? It was Frank
It
who
isn't.
started off
Testimony.
telling you
No.
that.
Yes, I've settled that.
Yes, you will. You won't take it
Quite
back.
wrongly.
You can have it. Frank, true or bluff?
He got a horrible smile on his face.
Oh, dear. No, nothing to do with that. That was all made up. Who gave the true definition? Here it is. There it is. Yes. It is, I think it's a term in real tennis. I'm not sure whether it isn't the tennis player himself, but it's certainly a term in real tennis. Janken is the next word, and Patrick has to define it for you.
A janken is, and used to be, a leather overshoe that was worn by pit ponies. They don't work as hard nowadays, but when the pit ponies were really working, you couldn't put any iron shoes on them because their little feet might cause inflammatory sparks to... and the whole thing would come down. So what... In order to prevent sparks coming out of the little feet, they pulled on their little... They didn't put on their own Yankers, but they had them put on for them. That's what they were called, while pit ponies were working.
The canaries have them as well.
Yes, as well.
Let's try Peter Egan now, shall we?
A janken would not be approved of by strict vegetarians, since it's a butcher's carcass hanger. It's a bit like a coat hanger with two hooks on each extremity, on which the carcasses are hung and stored in a butcher's cold room to mature.
Righto, all to the point, all to the point. Now it's Serena Sinclair's turn.
Janken, or to give it its full name, Janken Pon, is in fact a Japanese children's game. I think we've probably all played it at one time or other. In Europe, we call it zobbing. Now, with this Japanese children's game, which is something all children play, you take your fist and you try to make your fist or your fingers pretend that they are, in fact, a piece of paper or a stone or a pair of scissors. We've all done it.
Right.
Absolutely.
So it's that quite well-known hand game, Serena alleges. It's a butcher's hanger, and it's a shoe put on a pit pony for to stop the sparks flying, or something of the sort. Frank, your choice.
I approach this with fear in my heart, this decision, because we are unanimous.
Are you really?
We are unanimous. Here
We've
we are.
never been unanimous here on this side, ever.
Unanimity obtains here.
Who is it then?
Well,
Oh, he's got to go.
carcass, double carcass hooks. Janken just doesn't seem to be a name unless they're made in Germany or something, which they wouldn't have been. Japanese children's game, that we are worried about. We do think that's a strong contender. But we think it's the leather shoe coverings for canaries down pits.
That was the one that Patrick said. Patrick, true or bluff?
I can, isn't it?
We won't be seeing much more unanimity, will we, Frank? Not if you know anything about it.
Try that.
Let's see who had the true definition. Here it is. One of them's got it.
Well done, my darling. And you put yours down the hole.
It's the hand game, which I always thought was called Ching Chang Chollop, but I dare say it's called all sorts of
Yin
things.
Yang Yank.
Every which way, yes. One all interesting stage of the game. So is the next one. Alan Garner.
This is another very difficult word because it's not standard English. It's a dialect word. And it's the word used in the southwest Midlands for the large wooden tub with ears that sticks up, in which you can wash almost anything. They're not used nowadays. In my own area in the north, it's called a jow mug, but in Worcestershire, they call it a seau. You can also call it a borson or a pension, but the wooden one is called a seau.
Probably is.
Okay, now, whose turn is it next? Yes, Angela, you'll go.
The word is so, and it is the name that's given to a highly stylized form of Japanese decoration, the sort of thing that you would find on rather lovely rugs, on screens, on table mats, anything like that. And it takes its design from stylized landscapes which usually use Mount Fujiyama. So.
Alrighty. Frank, Muir's turn.
I'm so upset about that last question, Lucy. Sir, as this is pronounced, is Norwegian fish paste. They sort of grind up herrings and similar of the like roe, and grind it up and eat it raw. There's a pestle and mortar in the museum at Sandwich in Kent, which is believed to be a Viking one. Dropped around Pegwell Bay, presumably. Sir,
So,
it's very well known.
that's what they say it is. It's sort of a form of Japanese decoration. Fish paste, ground up in just the way Frank described, and a wash tub. Peter Egan has the choice.
We too are unanimous.
Yes, indeed, yeah. Well, those two are, anyway. I think row and sew is a little too close. I trust everything Japanese, so I'll go for the Midlands dialect from Alan.
Yeah, the wash tub, you mean? Yes,
Yes, the wash tub.
Alan Garner said it, didn't you? Yes,
So
you
I
did.
have to show this.
I'm afraid to do. True or bluff?
Is that too much?
Well, young Egan didn't say much, but what he said was choice. Yes. Now here goes another word. Catogan. Catogan, I suppose that's how you pronounce it. Peter, your turn.
Kaitogan, so pronounced, is the corpse of a once-living creature which, through some freak of circumstance, is naturally preserved. Fly in amber is a kaitogan. The mammoth found in Finland in 1902, refrigerated in ice. Kaitogan.
Yep. Serena
Get
Sinclair.
away.
A katogan is a very pretty hairstyle that New York women, very chic women, adopted in the mid-1880s. It's quite easy to do. You take your hair back like this, swoop it to the nape of your neck, and then turn it under in a very pretty little loop. Very fashionable it was. It may come back.
Looks rather nice.
Thank you.
Rather nice. And now, Patrick, it's your go.
Catogan is a cheap kind of pig iron, which is mined in Catogan, which is one of the industrial suburbs of Vladivostok. Now, it's such a mean, miserable kind of pig iron that you can only turn it into stoves, some drain pipe, I suppose, even door knockers. But that's what it is.
Didn't seem to cheer you up at all.
No.
Well, it's this rather gloomy sort of pig iron. It's that delightful hairdo, and it's a corpse in a state of preservation. Alan, your turn.
Well, I happen to know that it isn't a corpse in a state of preservation because the peculiar area of my education took me into flies in amber and mammoths in ice, so it's not that at all. Hairstyles. I know nothing about hairstyles, but I don't think that is a hair... If you said a hair net... No, a hairstyle.
Never touch them.
Unfortunately, Paddy can't speak Russian, so it's pig iron.
It's pig iron. Now, I mean, you seem fairly confident. True or bluff, Patrick? Not looking quite so gloomy now, I
It's
think.
misery.
You see, you didn't say whether you spoke Russian, Alan.
I did not say that.
No, I know you left that. So let's have the true definition. Let's see which of the other two that he sneered at will turn out to be the right one. It's a hairdo. It's a hairdo. That's what it is. 3-1. Meissen is the next word. Angela, your turn.
Well, if you'd ever had the opportunity of travelling in northern Libya, you would have come across quite a few Meissen. It's the name given to a rather delicate small mushroom which grows in the rather arid deserts of northern Libya. According to the nature notebook of Pliny the Elder, who was a sort of Roman David Attenborough, the taste of Meissen is, and I quote, passing sweet and pleasant.
Is it?
Could easily be. Right, now, Frank, your turn.
I don't want to rush this, and you may take notes. Meissen is a term used in integral calculus. It's a line drawn on a perfect sphere which intersects keeps all meridians at a constant angle. The line can be expressed mathematically as x equals 1/3 of pi times the radius. Could anything be simpler?
I must say, it may be true, maybe a bluff, but that was splendid, Frank. Get top marks. Alan, your turn.
I shall make it easy for the team this time. Meissen. Tigon. The cross between a lion and a tiger. Not usually achieved in nature, but frequently achieved in zoos. That being so, the Canadian government, round about the middle of the 1920s, decided to carry out an experiment to cross the moose with the bison. Fortunately or unfortunately, Mother Nature thought she knew better, and the whole scheme came to naught. But the word had been coined optimistically in advance.
Silly of them, really, wasn't it? Well, it's a kind of a mushroom.
Are we unanimous?
It's a cross between a moose and a bison, didn't work. And it's a term in mathematics beautifully spoken by Frank Muir. Serena, it's your choice.
Well, I'm worried about Angela's mushrooms because I thought mushrooms, I can be wrong, needed moisture, and these mushrooms growing out in the Libyan desert worry me. I think they're not going to live very long. Frank totally baffles me because anything more than 2 + 2 = 4 in any form of mathematics makes me feel that he's got to be right. On the other hand, Alan, I don't know.
That's obvious.
It's so cute. It's so cute that it can't be true. I'm going to vote for this amazing pi plus 1/3 of something else equals an apple pie with cinnamon. I'm voting for you.
Yes, it was Frank who beautifully spoke it. True or bluff?
It's a bluff, isn't it?
He was happy. All that must be true of something, I would have thought, Frank. One of these days it'll turn out to be true. Who gave the real definition of this word? Yeah, it's a mushroom and it grows exactly where Angela says it grows and nowhere else. There. Oh, I don't know about nowhere else, it might. Goller is the next one. Serena, your turn.
A goller is an in-word among pawnbrokers. They all know it means their assistant. When they whistle in the shop in the morning and say, "Goller, come here," they mean the guy who is unfortunately polishing the brass balls because nobody, hardly ever, will let him sell anything or buy anything. But he's very good at polishing. That's a goller.
Right. Patrick's turn now.
Goller was a crude kind of, well, all that stuff, really, O-R-E. It used to be imported into Great Britain from the Ukraine.
Oh, boy.
But its import was limited by a scandalous rumour that went round, very suddenly. They said it's mostly composed of human bones.
Golly.
And so the import of Goller stopped almost overnight. Which is a pity, because if you mix it up, it makes some interesting stuff for building with.
Or
Like the pig iron from...
Yeah, from the Vladivostok or the Ukraine.
Yes.
Peter Egan.
A goller may be described as the sound made by someone wearing an overtight collar. Oh! It's a sort of hoarse, half-strangled, half-articulated cry. Someone might make the sound suffering from severe laryngitis or sore tonsils. Oh!
Right, that's what they say. Once again, I'll tell you, it is sort of stuff for china. I mean, you know, porcelain. It's a junior pawnbroker, and it's a strangled cry. Angela, your choice.
I can't think why anybody would bother to give a strangled cry a name. I mean, they'd be too busy going to worry about it, wouldn't they? Crude or from bones, I don't really see that the two go together. Ore and bones, no. One is metal and one is animal.
Okay,
no. I don't know very much about the Yiddish language, but, I mean, it's so ridiculous and it makes such a lovely picture of somebody on stepladders polishing up the balls. Yes, I think it's that. Serena.
You think it that? You think it that Serena did say it? True or bluff?
Oh, dear, 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 what have you done?
She invented all that. Who gave the true definition?
You flash it.
It's there. No doubt about it. A golla is a strangled cry. 4-2, I say. Yeah, I thought I caught such a thing. Ockery, or, well, I suppose ockery, I don't know. Frank is the next one.
It's anybody's game, but ours. It's a very simple word, this. It's a nonce word again, and it's used by people who, to describe, people who don't like Scotsmen very much, to describe the sort of conversation which starts, oh, what the wee bear, oh, this is my cabbage, oh, you should not have done it, oh. That's called, speaking like that is referred to as ochry.
Now let's find out what Alan Garner says.
I seem to be stuck with the job of linguist tonight. This is Cornish. You were misled. There was a Celtic element, as you heard, but it's actually Cornish, which is allied to Breton. And it's a collection of lobster pots, because in the rough Atlantic weather, they need to keep them all tied together in a tight circle against the breakers. And I can't pronounce it properly because of not having the Cornish myself, but ockery is lobster pots.
Is lobster pots?
Is lobster, a collection of lobster pots.
You needn't go any further.
So Sean Connery is James Bond.
Angela.
I don't know why they're being all so confusing about this, because it's quite simple. Ockery is the adjective of the word. In fact, it's not ockery, it's oakery, the adjective of the word ochre, quite simply. Toffee, digestive biscuits, and 1978 national health cards are all oakery.
She's right,
Oh, well, it's this kind of Scotch vocative. It's of ochre, and it's a collection of lobster pots. Patrick.
I don't think I know what ochre is. What is it?
It's a kind of colour.
Oh, of course,
brownish.
silly Billy B. Yes, of course.
I think.
That's
Or is it yellow?
Well,
to be ochre.
Yellow.
Oh, I thank you so much.
Yes.
Getting help from everyone. Getting help from Serena. It certainly isn't a collection of lobster pots. There's just a lot of lobster pots. It isn't an ockery.
Thunder is quick, isn't it?
Very quick.
Whatever evocative Edinburgh, if that was an Edinburgh accent that you were at just now.
I didn't say Edinburgh. I didn't say Edinburgh, Pad.
But it's still you, though, isn't it?
Well, it's a one.
It's your word. You've got the true one in front of you.
You're making the choice, Patrick.
Yes, very
yes.
strong.
It's Frank who said all that about och and so forth. True or bluff?
Och, no.
No, that wasn't anything at all. Let's have the true definition of ockery. And lo, where it comes.
See, if you paid your...
There it is. It is not ockery, I should have said oakery, quite as in ochreous, I suppose. 4-3. Oh, plucky is the next one. Patrick.
I can't attempt to reproduce this in the local dialect, but, comma, it's a condition that pertains to young Scottish boys and deeply embarrasses them if they're trying to chat up young Scottish girls.
A kilt too big.
Because if you're pooky, it means you're covered with acne. So if you've got a lot of pooks all over your face, you never get anywhere with a Scottish teenage girl.
Pooks or plukes, I suppose. Plukes. Peter Egan, your turn.
A plukie is an Australian nickname for, part derisive and part affectionate, for an Aboriginal who chooses to live in a town or city. And Plukies are reputed to be not very bright, and there are lots of jokes about him on a par with the English's jokes about the Irish.
Chap who lives...
Yeah.
It's all this bookwork.
It's Serena Sinclair's turn now.
A Pluky is an East Anglian name for a child's bib. No child worth its salt in East Anglia would sit down to its gruel, bang its spoon, and yell for more, 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 unless it had its Pluky on. They're very fussy about it.
So it's this bib a child wears in East Anglia. It's an Aboriginal, and it's stated being pimply in Scotland. Frank, choose if you will.
A sort of East Anglian Oliver Twist with his Pluky sitting at his gruel. Well, perhaps, just examining now, to going through it. Chap who chooses to live in an Aussie city, bit thick.
Might get another one if you get a move on, Frank.
This wee Scot with terminal acne. I think it can only be the wee Scot.
The wee Scot of whom Patrick spoke. True or bluff?
Well done.
He's got it. Pluky certainly means pimply in Scotland, and we've got just sort of brightish time to get this last one in, and we need it, don't we? It's Alan Garner to define it fairly swiftly.
Assai, swift as the hawk it represents.
Oh, swift as the hawk it represents. I see, with me, it goes fast.
It is a falconry term for a type of hawk. It is a raptor which uses its beak and not its claws.
Ah, I see. Angela.
An assay was a silver Genoese coin, which is worth about 1/4 of a real, that is to say, about 4p in 17th century money.
And Frank?
It's a slang adjective meaning asinine. Stupid.
Oh, yes, right. Well, it means asinine. It's a certain sort of raptor that kills the prey with its beak rather than its paws, I should say claws, and it's a Roman coin. Now you have a choice to make, Peter. Egan.
Well, no. Don't know anything about birds, so...
Fairly swiftly now.
Won't go for the hawk. Don't know anything about money, so I'll go for Frank's asinine.
True or bluff, Frank? Own up. It's true! Well, that was a great game all through, and 4-4 it was, and then on the edge of our seats, and then just by one, 5-4, Patrick's team has won. We'll take the dust sheets off a few more words next week. Until then, goodbye from Alan Garner, Peter Egan, Angela Rippon, Serena Sinclair, Frank Muir,
Good night.
Patrick Campbell, good night, and goodbye. My bluff with the ancient mariner who picketh one of three. Patrick Campbell.
What a joy it is to welcome back the same team that had that tremendous victory last week by 1 point for the first time for 6 months. My first guest is Serena Sinclair. And my other guest is, of course, Peter Egan.
And old lofty, Frank Muir.
Back, of course, come the gallant losers, headed up by as our American cousins say, Angela Rippon. The editor headed up and considerably held up by writer, poet, all sorts of things, Alan Garner.
Let's have a word. We get a word by ringing that bell, and that word is kumbang. And this word, kumbang, will be defined by Patrick Campbell and his team 3 different ways. 2 are false, 2 of the definitions, 1 is true. That's the one that Frank Muir and co. tried to pick out. So off you canter, Patrick, with this one.
A kumbang, it isn't called kumbang, kumbang, is a wind that howls over Java, which you might know is an island in the East Indies. This terrible wind, it does fearful damage to the tobacco crops on the plain of cherry bomb.
Awful lot to
Does
write
it,
on
yes.
that one.
Right, after you comes Peter Egan.
Kumbang is a shoreside punch-up between Alaskan whalers. There is apparently, always has been, strong conflict between Alaskan whalers as to their private fishing areas, and very often ends in fisticuffs. Private punch-up, village punch-up, a kumbang.
Right. That and Serena Sinclair.
Well, you know, there are a great many kinds of Persian rugs, but there's a very special Persian rug called the kumbang. And why it's special is that it is a prayer rug. And how you know it's a prayer rug is that it has this lovely little red stripe just woven in around the border. It rather undulates, the stripe. It's charming.
What country was it?
Persian rugs.
Persia, always Persia on this programme. It's but lots of Persian rugs. But this is a Persian rug, special one. It's an Alaskan fight, and it's a Javanese wind ruins the tobacco. Frank, to choose.
I wonder. We have 4 opinions between 3 of us, which I think might be a record, but nevertheless it's encouraging. If I may deal with them one by one, in descending order, like Miss... Java wind, rubbish. Alaskan punch-up, rubbish. Prayer rug, rubbish.
You've got one more to
I think on the evidence of the feel of the word, it's Javanese wind.
The Javanese wind of which Patrick spoke. Was Patrick telling the truth, or was he teasing?
Telling the truth.
Javanese wind ruins the tobacco.
What a nice
Terrible
game
thing.
this is, isn't it?
Hambo is the next word. Hambo, Frank?
Very nice for a change, this. A hambo is a Swiss cheese. Not large, because it comes from a smallish canton, Appenzell, near Lake Constance. The hambo cheese is about round, about the same size as your average fish cake, and is soft and creamy and covered with ground-up chestnuts. Isn't that nice? Hambo.
Sounds pretty good. Alan Garner.
Another difficult one. The thing itself is quite easy to comprehend, but difficult to execute in that it is a dance. It's a dance similar to the Charleston, Black Bottom type of dance of that period, indeed. But what makes it a difficult word for us to establish is because it is Scandinavian in origin, and I always help you out on the linguistics. It's a Scandinavian modern dance based on a hotted-up folk dance.
Need to be hotted up for Scandinavia.
I think that's really all we need to know just at the moment. Angela, your turn.
If you're ever unfortunate enough to break a very priceless porcelain figurine, you would need Hambo, because it's something that's used by porcelain restorers. It's a resin, glue and whitening mixture, which they use to remould that part of a figurine that has been smashed.
It's putty for a putty.
So it's putty for a putto, and it's cheese, and it's a dance. That's what it is, Patrick.
I've asked her, but not you. You don't know either?
No idea.
Good. Well, it's absurd to talk about jazzed-up Scandinavian folk dancing, because it might happen. Porcelain is mended with plaster of Paris and varnished and polished, I think. That doesn't sound like a Swiss word, so I've run out. It is a Swiss cheese.
Swiss cheese, Frank, you said it was. True or bluff?
It's always my pleasure to give a bluff.
No. Not a Swiss cheese. Must be something else. Here comes the definition. The true one. There it is. Hambo, a dance. 2-0. We go on to Tonga. And it's Peter Egan's turn.
A tonga was Victorian slang for a shop doorbell attached to a spring, the kind you find in old drapers' shops. It's rather a good name for it, since the bell didn't go ding-dong, but ting-a-ting-a-tong.
Yes. Yeah. Good. Serena Sinclair.
Well, in America, they get their oysters in a very easy way by employing a man to get them from the seabed. And what does he do? He doesn't dive down like these Japanese lady pearlfishers. He has a pair of long, long tongs, and he uses those tongs. He's a tonger.
Now, it's Patrick's turn.
Tonja, as it's pronounced, it can also be spelt T-O-N-J-A. It's an apprentice elephant. If you're in the teak forests of Burma and you want a lot of trees shifted, you've got the mummy and daddy elephant there working away. But if you tie the son or the daughter up beside the mummy or the daddy, it's going to learn how to tug teak forests around. And they call it a tonja.
Uh-huh. So, they say it's a doorbell. The noise a doorbell makes, it's one who goes round with a pair of tongs catching oysters, and it's a junior elephant, an elephant in training. Alan Garner to choose.
Well, Tonga sounds... excuse me.
Pass it on. Oh, no, yes.
I've just been totally spoiled. By slang, you mean cant?
Slang, I mean.
Cant. So it's Cant Spring. A New York oyster catcher. An oyster catcher from New York. The trouble with this lady is that she's always got me down. Unfortunately, it looks too much like Malay. Again, it's the elephant.
You think it's the elephant with that impeccable accent Patrick spoke. Tonja. True or bluff?
Oh, no, it isn't.
No. I should give up the linguistics and just guess like the rest of them if I were you. Who gave the true definition? There it is. What else could a tonga be but a man with a pair of tongs tonging? Right.
I knew it was.
Imi is the next word, and Alan Garner defines it for you.
Oh, all right. I shan't do any teaching. First World War, voluntary women's service, ambulances, two types. The mobile ambulance lady, who could drive and was experienced, and the willing but less skilled lady, who was the immobile ambulance lady, who quickly became, of course, the IMI. A First World War voluntary ambulance lady who could not move.
Yeah, we got that.
Yes, that's right. Made a note of that. Now, Angela.
Well, the IMI, I suppose, really is the schoolboy's Rolls Royce of marbles or alleys. It's a glass marble that's especially toughened by adding lime to the glass, so that it gives it a rather sort of shatterproof quality when the going gets really tough in a game of marbles or alleys.
Mm-hmm. Now, Frank.
An Immy is a kind of nude canary. You see, when the canaries molt, they start at the age of about 10 months, and then the little thing loses its feathers, and it lasts about a month, this frightful molt. It is not naked, of course. I mean, there's little bits of rotten, but it's a very sort of unhappy, unattractive little bird. And that period, during that period when it's molting, it's called, among bird fanciers, an Immy.
Is it? So, right. It's a special kind of well-toughened marble. It's an immobile nurse and a rather threadbare canary. Peter Egan, your choice.
Unanimous again.
Unanimous, yes.
Oh.
Dangerous word.
I can never understand a word Alan says, so I'll discard that one. And I love Frank's one. It's very persuasive. But as I trust Angela, I'll go for hers.
That was swiftly done. Angela, you said it was this marble, True of
My
Love.
goodness, what a compliment.
So that's exactly what it is. It's a very special, glamorous sort of marble. 2-2. And the word now is sarocel. Serena.
The sarocel is a magic boat. All people who know Arabian folklore know about the sarocel. It's such an amazing magic boat that it has no sails at all. But somehow the man sailing it, who is looking for the harbor of immortal souls, manages to keep it moving all the time.
That's right. Very pretty. Very nice. Let us now see how sweetly Patrick follows on.
It is rather sweet. Sarocel was, in the 17th century, much used for haute couture. It was a kind of silk material with the texture of twill, kind of ribbed a bit.
Lovely.
And was it not Samuel Pepys who said, what did he say?
And so to Bluff.
A clear day in April, not in 1962, 1662, comes Mrs. Knapp at noon, and her pale features are marvellously agreeable above the sarocel. Obviously, it had that hair between her legs.
Very nice, very nice. Peter.
Pretty.
A sarocel is a small back room in a glassworks. To be more precise, it's a heated back room into which drinking glasses are brought in on a tray in order to cool down very, very slowly in order that they shouldn't crack.
Yep, you'd have to have such a place, I suppose. Well, it's a magic boat. It's a room in a glassworks, and it's silk stuff. Angela to choose.
I'm getting all sorts of messages up the line.
No accommodations.
Fatal.
Oh. See, I don't know Samuel Pepys well enough to know whether he really did say that or not. And I doubt if you did either, Patrick. The glassworks, Saracel, yes, I suppose they would have a name for it, rather like a kiln. I always thought those things without sails that the Arabians went around in were called flying carpets. I mean, she's had some lovely ones, hasn't she? No, I think it's Peter.
You think it's the room in the glassworks, which Peter Egan spoke. True or bluff? He'll tell you now. He's got it there. He has to own up. Yeah. Yes. Yep. Saracel is a room in a glassworks. You often wondered what it was called. Well, it's called that, Saracel. Follis is our next word. Angela Rippon's turn.
If you're someone who is interested in gardening, this is probably a term that you'll have come across because it's a horticultural term for a blister. It's a sort of blister that appears usually on the underside of leaves, most particularly on willow leaves. And it's nature's way of storing water in times of drought. A small blister on the underside of a leaf.
And now, Frank Muir.
Follis is a traditional old Kentish loaf of bread. Pretty well all there is to say about it. It's wholemeal and malt, the usual things. The thing about Follis was that it was, the idea was that you baked it in the oast house, and it had a sort of faintly hoppy thing to it. Doesn't sound very nice, does it?
Or interesting.
Let's try Alan Garner. Your go.
I'm sorry about this, it's very dull. Like the S, Follis is a Roman coin of the period of the Emperor Diocletian. And the only other thing I need to say about it is that it is masculine, unlike most Latin words ending in is, which are feminine.
I didn't know that.
Right.
Did you?
Remember it now. Kentish bread. Bump on a leaf, moisture in it.
No,
Roman
no,
coin.
yeah.
Masculine, not feminine. Serena.
don't know.
Your choice.
Well, I'm worried about the taste of this bread of Frank's. I think maybe all the children of Kent are weaving about drunkenly from eating this stuff. I don't think they're going to be allowed to make it still. I think perhaps not. Angela seems very possible, this little blister full of water. But since I know nothing about trees at all, I have a funny feeling Alan could be right, and we're onto a coin. Yes.
You're choosing the coin.
Alan.
It was indeed Alan. True or bluff? You're right. Follis, a coin. 3-all, another exciting match. Trass is the next one. Patrick.
Trass is a kind of pumice-like stone that's found on the banks of the River Rhine between Mainz and Köln, or Cologne to you, probably. Now, Trass used to be imported into England because it made it, if you powdered it up a bit and put some water on it, it made it into a lovely hydraulic cement. But people ceased to find any use for hydraulic cement, and so didn't import it any longer.
I don't know what hydraulic cement is. I mean, cement mixed with water.
Hydraulic cement. Yes. Well, it's obviously a very vivacious thing, whatever it is. Peter, your turn.
Trass is a Caribbean word for the stalks of sugar cane after the sugar has been squeezed out. Trass is usually stored to dry out in buildings known, not surprisingly, as